Hi guys. I wanted to take a moment to come on and talk about my experience with the Vipassana meditation. So I'd heard about it from some of the people in my yoga teacher training program who had done it before. And I'd had the curiosity for silent meditation. It was kind of intuitive before I learned about Vipassana, just because at the time I was doing all this chakra meditation and something basically to shift my state of being, or to resolve something, or to see something, or to change something, or to do something. But I felt this kind of desire, or this pulling toward dropping all of the practices to change something and just do something to be and to see what is already there without trying to change it. And it was probably around the same time where Vipassana popped up. And I came across their website, which is where I eventually learned about the videos. No, I didn't learn about them on the website. I learned about all the things that you have to kind of do, like the promises you make to yourself. I can't remember the exact terminology, but what you agree to when you come into Vipassana. So no writing, no reading, no communicating. Don't make eye contact with anybody because you pull them out of their practice. No technology, of course. No, nothing. And I thought I would mimic that, but then I found the videos on YouTube. And so what I did was I gave myself the only tech time I had was to watch that one of the lectures every day. I did it twice, 2 3-day silent meditations on my own. And I did give myself time, like in the morning, because I was in another country, and there was no way to contact me, to check my phone, for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, just in case something had happened at home. And I didn't reply any messages unless there was some urgency, which I don't recall there being any. So it was basically silence. However, during that time, I only meditated like a seated meditation 3 times a day, which was morning, afternoon, and evening. And I still attended my yoga classes online because I was doing my yoga teacher training at the time. So I still attended, I think, 2 yoga classes a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. And I had 3 meals a day. In between that time, I would just basically sit in contemplation. I gave myself, it was about 40 minutes or an hour every day to go for a walk, to walk my doggos. So I didn't do seated meditation for as many hours as you do when you're in the actual structured program, but I was still kind of living meditation in between the actual seated sessions. Then during my actual Vipassana, which I did, I think the first one, or the only one that I've done, the only 10-day one that I've done, I think was about maybe 3 years after my first 3-day silent meditation. I did a second one before coming back to South Africa. But this was in, I think, maybe August of 2022. We're in 24 now. I came home in 2022. So I think it was August of 2022. So just under 2 years ago. And at the end of the Vipassana, I seriously felt like I'm never doing this again. But now I'm starting to feel like, okay, I'm ready. I could do another 10-day Vipassana. I did feel like this earlier, maybe sometime last year. And then also the desire to do an even longer one. But I think you have to do like maybe 4 or 5 10-day Vipassanas before you can do a 20-day one or something like that. I can't remember exactly. You can have a look on the website. Everything is on there. But during the practice, or during the 10 days, so basically you come in, you hand your phone in on day 0. I think it's from 6 p.m. you then go into silence. And then basically from the very next morning, the bell rings at about 4:30 a.m. to begin your morning meditations. This goes on every morning. And I think you can go to the hall to do that first meditation, or you can stay in your room and do it. I'll be honest, for the first day, I sat up and I started the meditation, and then I was like, hell no. So before the hell no, I laid down and I was like, no, I'll just do it laying down. And then by the second or the third day, I just, I'd fallen asleep during laying down. It's really important to remain seated because you will fall asleep. But by the fourth day, I just stopped getting up. However, I think it was the sixth day, I started to feel like this is really hard. The kind of the desire to sorry about my doggo, the desire to like leave was starting to creep in, but I knew I wasn't gonna leave, but it was just starting to feel like, damn, can this end already? By day 7, I started to take it more seriously. I was like, dude, you've been wanting to do this for a few years now, and finally you're here and you have the opportunity to do it, and you're gonna waste it? This makes no sense. And so I sort of changed or shifted my mind at that point and decided to take it more seriously. And on day 7, 8, 9, 10, I did all the meditations right from that very first one. I think it's like from 5 a.m. or something. One thing I will say, just to add something in here, is do some exercise before you go. Unless you have an injury or a problem with sitting on the floor and you plan on sitting on a chair, which is something that you can opt for, but it's not common. You're going to be sitting on the floor on bolsters. The pain in my body from having to sit for so many hours a day, I really felt like, man, I wish I was more diligent in my yoga practice, because before I went for the Vipassana, I really was not diligent in my yoga. I'd qualified and I'd stopped teaching online, so I wasn't doing much physical stuff before I came back to South Africa, except a little run here and there. Nothing significant enough to make me feel like my body was strong enough to actually remain seated without back support for so many hours a day. It's basically like between 10 and 12 hours of meditation a day. When I say 12, I include the lecture time. And so it can be really, really painful. I did find that during, we would have some outside time, like free time, where you can kind of just be in the sun, and it was like after lunchtime or something like that. I did use that time to do a little bit of yoga and stretch. It helped significantly, but I promise you it was still not enough. The one thing that I would highly recommend is to strengthen your core before going, and to have some kind of stretching practice or something that you can do between sessions, because it is really intense on your body. Otherwise, you have breakfast in the morning at about, I can't remember, maybe like 6 o'clock or something, or 6:30. And then lunch at around about 12 or 1, I can't remember, and then dinner at about 6. I actually cannot remember well. But the food is really bland. But I believe the intention or the purpose of this is to not stimulate your senses. So to keep you as much as you can focused on the inner journey and not on the 5 senses, which is also why you don't want to be making contact with people, pulling them out of their practice. Just to keep your mind as still and as focused as possible. And if you're having spicy food and food that's really going to excite your taste buds, you are really dropping very much back into the physical, into the five senses, where I guess the intention is to go beyond that. I had initially decided to do this meditation when I came home, because before coming home, I was starting to feel like I was in Korea, right? I was starting to feel like it had been 4.5 years since I'd visited my family. It was, COVID hit, and then nobody could travel at the time, and I especially couldn't move the dogs. So I really felt like I knew I needed to come home, but I kind of managed to because I really wanted to finish my contract at the time, before leaving. So I sent the doggos because of the whole problem with flights and moving pets at the time. And when I got that gap, I was like, okay, I got to take it, because I don't know if something's going to happen again. I'm not going to be able to move them again. So I moved them as soon as I could, but I stayed. They left in February, and then I came home in June. And I could really feel by the time that I came home, I did break my contract eventually, that it was like, you gotta go. You know that feeling. It's like something else is saying, it's time, and you ignore it. It's time, you ignore it. You gotta go, you gotta do this thing, you ignore it. And then eventually it kind of drops in some other uncomfortable way, either through some kind of illness, or for me, it was the case of feeling really depressy again. But it wasn't like spiritual awakening type depression. It wasn't dark night of the soul stuff. At the time, I thought, is this another one? But no, it wasn't. It was just whatever needed to happen to make me move. Let's call it communication from the soul. Yeah. So I came home to do the Vipassana in the hopes that things would kind of flip in a big way. I really wanted to wake up. That was my intention, because I'd felt like I'd fallen asleep again. Become identified with the ego self again. And I really was like, I got to do something to wake up. So I came for the Vipassana, and it partially woke me up, but not to the degree that I had hoped. So I felt a little bit disappointed. Other people have, like, I've heard of people having Kundalini awakenings when they're on their Vipassana, but this wasn't the case for me. It helped a bit, but not as much as I'd hoped. So I decided to attend an ayahuasca ceremony 2 weeks later, which is not advised, but I did. And I will tell you guys about that on the next video. Just to finish up with the Vipassana, I would highly recommend it, just because for me, it's kind of like boot camp for your mind. You're really training yourself to be able to be hyper focused, to be so aware, so attuned with your body and with your environment, that it's boot camp for your mind. I think of it as like, if you had this as a foundational practice before you go into any other spiritual work, you'll be really solid mentally. You'll be really solid mentally. So highly recommend. And I would do it again, and hopefully I'll be able to do that sometime soon. Not sure if it'll be able to be this year, but we'll see. We'll see about that. Anyway, wishing you guys a cool one, and I'll share my ayahuasca journey on the next video. Lots of love, and take it easy.